Hey there, guys. Couldn't tell this is going to be another installment in the very not controversial little series that I'm making, which is Should You Make? And today's video is going to be starring the lovely Arcanist. I'm deciding to do Arcanist now because it's an alt that I enjoy playing and doing dailies on for the most part, and it's also one of the newer classes, so, you know, hopefully people can learn something from this video, glean some information, maybe it looks interesting and you want to try it. That's the goal of these videos, to see if you guys are interested in the class, if it sounds interesting, looks interesting, and to find you an alt that you enjoy. Before we get into the video though, if you guys could subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. The growth has been, again, amazing. I say it every video, but it's just kind of unreal to me, and I appreciate each and every one of you. You're all amazing, and yeah. Alright, let's get into the video. Enough chitter chatter. Oh, little fan service there for you all. I'm not a coomer, I swear. In any case, let's take a look at the class. So mine is 1415 because it's one of my 500 alts that don't earn gold. So I just park her at 1415, and she does Chaos Dungeons and Descaluta. Usual alt stuff, level 5 gems, no LOS card sets, so I'm still using Lost Wind, and I have it in a 3x3, 2x1, 1x1 setup. For Empress, and obviously if you couldn't tell, this is going to be an Empress Grace video, specifically. I'll touch on Emperors a little bit. I don't have any experience playing Emperor in like actual content. I've messed around with it in Trixion to kind of figure out which one I wanted to try playing, and I settled on Empress. So Empress, let's go over the basics of it. It is a spec class. So again, I think spec classes in general, it requires a certain kind of person to want to play spec classes, because they are different. Very, very different. Secondary stat's going to be crit, but it's a spec primary class. Yeah, I know my spec is very low, but I geared this character when Arcanist first came out, and these were very expensive to get as it is. Obviously, I would fix this stuff up if I was going to push her up, or now that she's 1415, I could buy relics, but in any case, I still think she feels fairly strong for what she is with this setup, and this setup is very, very bare bones. So let's get into the basics of how Arcanist plays. Let's summon up a boss here. Oh, let me also change my spec over to the proper one. There we go. Oh, would help if I saved it, huh? I know how to play Lost Ark, I swear. Okay, so this is what you're going to be looking at here. So the basics of Arcanist is you have your yellow skills, which, for all intents and purposes, I'm going to call these your card generation skills. So you have two of them. Call of Destiny, which is your spammable one that you're pretty much always going to use on cooldown, and then Return, which is a counter, but it's also your crit synergy. So you're going to want to save this for your big abilities. Your red skills are going to be your spender skills. These are rune skills. So whenever you use blue skills, which are your builders, you can see it applies these card stacks onto an enemy, and your spenders will use the card stacks. The stacks max at 4, and you want to just use... It's a simple builder-spender rotation, really. It's nothing more complex than that. So the basics of Arcanist, like a super basic Arcanist rotation that I used for the longest time when I was parked or at 1370 and just not really had any idea how to play her, was something like this. It's very simple. Right? So this rotation will get you through content. You do that again, scratch dealer, and then you drop another secret garden, and then you repeat from the beginning. You see what I mean? It all kind of lines up pretty well. And then we'll talk about the cards, because cards are the main mechanic. I mean, it's her whole identity. Where do I want to begin with cards? So, you can click the button here and it will show you your entire deck of cards. There are a lot of cards. I'm not gonna say there's not. And then the other spec, the other class engraving adds another card to your deck, but really, you only have to know what a couple cards do. There's going to be a lot more depth to the class. Like, there's always going to be more depth to each class than what I'm saying in these videos. Because these videos are supposed to be very introductory, and it's supposed to see if this class is something that looks interesting to you and my opinions on it. Obviously, this is a whole opinion piece. But I try to make it as unbiased as I can because ultimately, I want people to have resources to look on, to make informed decisions so they have fun playing the game, because I want the game to succeed. So for all intents and purposes, you don't need to know what this card does. You don't really need to know what this card does. This card gives you damage, or it doesn't. Very simple. Don't need to know what this card does. Don't need to do what this... Don't need to know what this card does. This card, I would argue, is probably your best card. Basically, it makes every card, or every attack you do a crit, and it gives you crit damage when it hits one enemy. Very good card. It's a skull. Looks nothing like any of the other cards. You'll learn this card pretty quickly, as it is your best card, IMO. This card is pretty interesting. You don't need to know what it does, but you will very quickly learn what it does, and it just makes your rotation do a little bit more damage, and it's a bit more smooth. This card, you will know what it does because when you use it, basically you can use all your red skills as if they had 4 stacks, even if the enemy has 0 stacks. So it's a card that you pop and you just dump everything. Like, very big burst. You don't need to know what this card does. Don't need to know what this card does. This card, very good. You want to use it as your last card always, because it will fill up both your card slots, and it just gives you 2 more cards. And it can give itself back to you. So you can use a royal, and you can get like a moon and a royal back. See, then you'd use the moon, and then you'd use the royal again. And then say you get like a 3-headed snake and a royal. You'd use the 3-headed snake and then the royal, right? Makes sense? You always want to use the royal card last, and it just gives you cards. And then Wheel of Fortune, which isn't super great in most content. For Guardian raids and Legion raids, though, it can be very good. You can use it to reset your awakening. It will, as you can read, cooldown of the next skill decreases by 100%. Works on the awakening. I will show you this later if I draw the card, but basically, you just build up to 4 rune stacks, you drop return, you activate the card, and then you drop your ult. Let's go over a little bit, see if we can kind of weave in some cards to the rotation, see what it looks like. Okay, so I got a Twisted Fate. So both these skills are on cooldown, but I have 4 stacks, and I have Spiral Edge up. So I am going to use Twisted Fate. I dump this, and then that way I get the damage bonus for both these skills. Makes sense? Again, it's pretty self-explanatory. The biggest thing is just learning what the cards do without having to think about it, and that's just something that's going to take time. Alright, so we got Cull and then Moon, which is kind of useless. I mean, it has use, but for all intents and purposes, as an alt, you don't really need to know what it does. If you want to get more in-depth with the class, I mean, it lowers 10% cooldown, very good. I'm not going to say that's a useless card, because it's not, but you know what I mean. From a cursory glance of somebody who doesn't really play this as their main, you don't really need to worry about it. So for Cull, you're going to want to... Let's talk about Serendipity, because you might notice that you can only really realistically use 2 spenders with your builders. Serendipity is another counter skill that you will pretty much always have up, because Serendipity is not a skill that you want to be using. Celestial Rain is your highest damaging ability. You can see the tripods on it, and you can see why. And then Secret Garden is going to be your second highest damaging ability in most cases, and that is because you'll see that first tripod Vital Point hit. Every stack gives it 15% crit, so you're getting 60% crit from 4 stacks. You'll notice Serendipity does not have that tripod, and Celestial Rain and Secret Garden do. So, what does that mean? Serendipity technically does more damage, but it will crit much less often, which makes it do less damage. But if you get a Cull card, this is the one alteration to the rotation. If you get Cull, you're going to want to use Serendipity over Secret Garden as your second spender. So, you would do that. Obviously, you would activate the Cull card. Here, let's do this. So, I'll do a real rotation with it. So that's a guaranteed crit, and then this is a guaranteed crit. That does more damage overall than Secret Garden. And then you'll notice that Quadra Accelerate sometimes jumps it up to 4 stacks immediately. And that's because of the card draw tripod. Generally speaking, this doesn't help you super a lot. It just lets you get out more damage in a shorter period. So if it procs, which it didn't, let's assume it had procced. Instead of using Scratch Dealer to get up to 4, I would just immediately go into this. Oh, nice, we drew a Wheel of Fortune, so I can show you what I mean about the Awakening reset now. And I can also draw... So, card combos are also a thing that I will talk about. Let me get... I really want to get a Cull card. But I don't know if the game will allow me such a luxury. Well, we can do Balance, too. Okay, so Balance card, it just gains you 1 more stack per hit. So what does this mean in short? When you have Balance on, Quadra Accelerate and Scratch Dealer both become full stack abilities. So you can do something like this. And then you can also weave Serendipity into your rotation with this up. Very easily, you can see. It's super smooth. Nothing weird about it at all. You're basically just pressing your buttons as they come up, and using Return when you can with Celestial Rain. See, I just got the 4-stack proc there, so I can do this, because I have Spiral Edge up, and that'll be coming up within the window. So you can see, it's just a lot of knowing what the cards do, and you not have to think about them, and then also knowing kind of, do I have Spiral Edge up? Should I return? Kind of deal, if that makes sense. And then Judgment, it's a simple card, but when you get a Judgment, just dump it like this. You can see it does damage. And Serendipity with Judgment is really good, because Serendipity does damage twice, and you will only ever get the 4 rune stack effect on the first hit, but with Judgment, you get it on both hits, so Serendipity becomes an absolute monster of an ability. Now let's stop stalling for the Wheel of Fortune. Wheel of Fortune reset is pretty easy. You just want to build up to 4 stacks, drop a Return, Wheel of Fortune, use your Awakening. You can spacebar and then use Celestial Rain to get Barricade buff if you're running Barricade, which right now is quite good. In the upcoming balance patch that we're getting next month, Arcanist does get some nice changes, quality of life changes, including what I would call an overall skill floor and ceiling raise, which is a good thing, so it's an overall buff. I think that's probably as much information as I can realistically give you. This is something that you're just going to have to play around with yourself, whether it be in Guardian Raids or Trixian. It can be tricky to get a hang of it at first, but if you take away about half of the cards because you don't really need to know them and just focus on the ones that immediately give you huge benefit, I think you will start to learn Arcanist pretty easily. And obviously there is a lot more depth you can do. Comboing cards, for example, knowing when to hold cards. A lot of people hold cards too long. That's another problem with Arcanist. You don't want to hold cards too long, because it's better to get the usage out of the cards rather than just repeatedly trying to draw more cards to combo together. That's just something you'll have to get a personal feel for, whether you should try to fish for a combo or just dump the cards that you have. Now let's talk about the other engraving for a second here. Would help if I opened the right thing. Order of the Emperor. Emperor is not a spec class, it is a swiftness class. So if you're somebody that typically likes swiftness classes, perhaps Emperor will be more your speed. It's similar-ish to what Empress is. You can also do Empress 1, Emperor 1. You can use both class engravings. There is a very interesting build from one of the best Arcanists in Korea floating around. Jido, I believe. You can go ahead and look up him. It's spelled Jiudau. If you're interested in looking at the double class engraving build, that is about 25,000 IQ points too much for me, though. The last thing I want to mention here, before we end off the video, is for Chaos Dungeon clearing without Relic Set. Oh, I guess I should mention Relic Set. It's just not a thought to me because it's Nightmare. So Nightmare doesn't really change the playstyle of the class at all. It just gives you damage and removes mana as a factor, basically. So yes, Empress is a Nightmare set class, so you just do more damage, essentially. Nothing gameplay changing there. But for Chaos Dungeons without Relic Set, and even with Relic Set, you absolutely want to be running at least Emperor 1 because it adds the Emperor card to your deck. And the Emperor card, ooh, weird bug there. Emperor card is basically just a massive AoE nuke. And Chaos Dungeons can be a little slow if you're unlucky with drawing Emperor cards. But basically, you just use all the yellow abilities that you can to draw cards, and hopefully you draw Emperor cards, and then you use the Emperor card to clear the mobs. Again, depending on RNG, can be quite fun, can be kind of painful. Overall, I would rate Arcanist without Betrayal Set, Chaos Dungeon Clear, average at best. Average to low average, something like that. In any case, hopefully this showed you kind of Arcanist isn't that scary. It's definitely an alt-playable character if you want to. And then obviously there is much, much more depth you can get into should you want to main it. But you don't necessarily need to know the intricacies of each class that you alt. And that's the thing that I think most people get hung up on. Eventually you'd want to learn them, but if you're just starting out, just trying to find a class that you enjoy, you don't need to know all the, like, minute details of, like, a cull balance into royal combo, or, like, mid-cull royal, and then use the royal draw cards mid-combo kind of deal. Like, ultimately you want to learn how to do that, and you will learn how to do that just by playing the class. But it doesn't help you figure out if you want to play the class or you find it fun, you know what I mean? In any case, hopefully this Arcanist overview kind of sheds some light on the class. It's not that scary of a class, I promise. It is very fun. If it looks interesting to you at all, Empress is spec, Emperor is swift if you want swift. If either spec looks interesting to you, I definitely recommend giving it a try, as that's the only way that you'll know if you like it. Alright, so that's the end of the video. If you like the video, like it, of course. If you dislike it, of course. Leave a comment. I always love reading the comments. Let me know your thoughts. And subscribe if you haven't. Supports the channel, supports me, and yeah, makes me happy face. Alrighty. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!